Okay. Um, so, welcome to Sattva Project, Open Heart, Open Mind. Today we have a very special guest, Christopher Wilkinson. I want to say hello, Christopher Wilkinson, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation for this interview. It's going to be a pleasure to spend this time with you, knowing about your work, your amazing work, a lot of translations you have done, and such a deep works, such a deep translations you have done. So for me, it's a big honor to have you here in Sattva Project for this interview. And maybe our audience doesn't know you or is not familiar with you, so I will start to introduce you to everybody. So Christopher Wilkinson began his study of Tibetan and Sanskrit in 1972. He holds a BA degree in Asian language and literature and another BA degree in Comparative Religion. He got his Master of Arts in 1988. His thesis was on the Tantra Clear Meaning, which he had now translated and published, correct?
Yes.
So his academic work includes 3 years as a professor in English literature in Sulawesi, 5 years as an adjunct professor at the University of Calgary, and 15 years as a research fellow in the US and France. He has published 12 books of quality translations of Tibetan literature to English, touching on every aspect of the transmission of Buddhism. His Great Perfection series includes 6 books that show us the earliest presentation of the Great Perfection. In total, he has 44 translations till today, which is simply amazing. So congratulations. And his Sakya Kongma Series includes 6 anthologies of translations of the original writings of the founders of the Sakya tradition in Tibet. So welcome, Christopher Wilkinson, to Sattva Project interview.
Hello. It's nice to see you.
And I think
I'm really happy to share with you some of my history and what I'm doing and how it might interest you. And so I'm really happy to be doing this interview.
Yes, and we are very happy to have you here, especially for 2 reasons. First, your wonderful bio and CV, your academic experience, your translation experience. Your work is simply amazing. And second, because we had a previous interview with the wonderful Dr. Rudolf Bauer that mentioned one of your works and even recommend one of your books. So these are wonderful reasons to have a guest like you. So I will start our interview. Okay. Now that our audience is already familiar with you, I'm going to start this interview with you and start by a very simple way. How did you start your career as a translator? What inspired you to do this, Chris?
Well, when I was 15 years old, my mother was a yoga teacher. So I grew up hearing about yoga and meditation and all of that. And when I was 15 years old, I decided that I wanted to meet a Tibetan Lama. And I went to see Trungpa Rinpoche in Boulder in 1972. And
Wow.
he had just arrived in Boulder, and those were the teachings that later on became the book, I think, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. But I met Trungpa Rinpoche. At that time, I was 15 years old, and I had this translation that Trungpa Rinpoche did of the Mahamudra prayer, and I read the Mahamudra prayer many times. And finally, I decided I just had to ask him. So I arranged an interview, and I got to see him. And I said, "What does this mean?" And he said, "Isn't it obvious?" And I was like, I expected him to give me some sort of explanation, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
as I thought about that, he was empowering me to find my own understanding. But I did find out that I did not feel comfortable as a teenage kid in Boulder by myself. And so somebody there told me that there was a Lama who lived in Seattle named Daishon Rinpoche, but he was an old man and he had no translator and he spoke no English.
Mm-hmm.
And my family was living in Seattle, so I went back to Seattle and I found him in the phone book. I mean,
In the phone book.
in the phone book, it had his address because back then we
Wow.
had phone books that had everybody's address in them. And
Yes.
so I just went there to his house by myself. And I knocked on the door, and this old man opened the door and he saw me and he just invited me right in. And then there was this other old man sitting on a chair by the window with beads in his hand and a crutch beside him. Um, and um, and these was Daishon Rinpoche and his brother. They invited me right into the house and sat me down at the couch and offered me a cup of tea and sat there, and we couldn't really communicate, but they were very friendly and we had a basic conversation and all that. And I was really impressed by Daishon Rinpoche. And I
Wow.
went there to his house a few times. And then David Jackson arrived from India and he was able to translate. And so I took refuge when I was 15 from Daishon Rinpoche. And
Wow.
I was very, very motivated to because I wanted to know what his wisdom was. And I knew that the
Wow.
only way that I was going to do that was by learning Tibetan.
Mm.
And there was no other way to access this person than to learn his language. And
Yes.
it happened that the University of Washington had a very good Tibetan program at that time. And they had one of the best libraries of Tibetan books in the world.
Mm.
And so I signed up at the university to learn Tibetan. And
Mm.
my whole goal was to get to the wisdom that this man had. I mean, this man, he was a refugee. He lost everything. He lost his country. He was living in my country where he couldn't even speak English, you know,
Mm.
and he managed to maintain his happiness and his positive view. And he had one leg that was like permanently damaged, so that he had to go everywhere on crutches. But he managed to keep a positive attitude, and that impressed me very much. And I was also very much interested in learning the secrets wisdom of the East. I wanted to find the ancient secrets and all of that, and I was very much like a treasure hunter. And
Oh.
I never got very active in things like Tibetan politics
Mm.
or Tibetan businesses or Tibetan enterprises or the construction of monasteries or any.
Yeah.
I never got interested in any of those things particularly. I was
Mm.
always interested in the wisdom that was in the books. And Desha
Wow.
Rinpoche was a book person. He loved to read and to talk about books. And so I could tell you a whole long story, but we don't have a whole lot of time. But
Yeah.
in 1984, I was
Mm.
Desha Rinpoche was leaving Seattle to go to Kathmandu, where he built a monastery. And I
Mm.
knew that it would be the last time that I saw him because he was old and not well.
Mm.
And I went to his house and I made an offering, and 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 all that. And then I had a very frank discussion with him, and I said, like, you're going back to Kathmandu, and I'm here, and I don't know how to go on with my path. Like, what should I do? And he said, you should focus your attention on the great perfection, and particularly the transmission handed down from Padmasambhava.
Yeah.
And he knew me
A big
very well.
responsibility.
He
Big
knew me very well from all
responsibility.
that time. So I said, one of the things I said is, do I need any empowerment to do that? And he said, you've already received all the empowerments from Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche, so you don't need to worry about getting more empowerments. And you have the blessings of your lamas. So I took that very personally, and I quit my job. I was working in social work at the time as a YMCA assistant director,
Oh,
doing social programs.
oh,
And I quit my job, and I went to the University of Calgary, and I started working on the Great Perfection. And at that time, like, nobody knew anything about the Dzogchen. It was like people were very amazed if you said Mahamudra at that time. But I think Herbert Gunther was the only one that had really written anything connected with Dzogchen, and
yeah.
so I was doing groundbreaking research,
Very good.
and that I knew that there was this tremendous treasure house of ancient wisdom sitting there in Tibetan, and I thought that I needed to go to academia to somehow find a position for myself before I could really get into translating all the tantras. And I did try to get a PhD in more than one place. I never got my PhD, but I did try. I never really had a thesis. I never had anything
Oh,
to prove.
I
You have
understand.
to want to prove something to get a
Yes,
PhD, and I
yes,
didn't have anything to really prove. What I really wanted to do was be a translator. So I about 10 years ago, I just decided that come hell or high water, I'm going to translate the tantras. And I just sat down and started working at it. And the first couple of years, I was sleeping on like a foam mat at different friends' houses on their floors. And I'd work all day translating Tibetan mysteries. And I made it through that stage, and things got better and better and better as I published more and more books. And now there's 44 of them out there.
yes.
And
Wow.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy that I could make
Wow.
this kind of contribution to the world. And in a big way, I'm paying back the kindness that Desho Rinpoche gave to me.
Yes.
Because when I had nothing to offer him at all, I was a teenage kid in America. I had nothing to offer him really, but he
Yeah.
gave me a lot of attention and time and care.
Yeah.
And I think what I can do to return that kindness is to put out good quality translations of the ancient scriptures.
Yes. So we can say your career in translation starts with meeting this teacher, devotion for this teacher, and taking refuge with this teacher.
Yes.
Wow, this is really amazing. I'm very, very happy to hear this, it was not a coincidence for sure. You found the phone number, then you were invited for a cup of tea, and then you ended study Tibetan and you translate 44 uh, books. This is simply amazing. So thank you so much for explaining how you start your career as translator. It's fascinating. I will go move for the second question if you don't have nothing else to say about how do you start, or do you want to say something else about your career as translator?
In the 70s and the 80s, I translated a lot of live lectures where the Lama would be sitting there and I would be sitting next to him, and the Lama would
Simultaneous
talk for a few minutes.
simultaneous translation.
And I did that, and I found out that I'm not really I don't really have the charisma and the kind of energy that's needed for that kind of a venue. My
Translation.
language skills are very good, but
Mm.
I know that I have the most to offer by translating written books.
Mm-hmm. I
You know, and
understand you.
so in the last 20, 30 years, I've shifted away from the live translations to the books. And I think that's
Very
good.
good.
I think that's where I have the greatest gift to offer the world.
Yes, very good. And to the teacher that inspire you to go to the great perfection path, right?
Yeah.
So you have translated so many ancient texts. Why you choose to translate high and very advanced Tantra texts, Christopher?
Well, that's what I was saying, that when I went to my teacher and said, "What should I do now?" he
Mm-hmm.
specifically told me to work on these texts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's because he saw that I was like, I had the right kind of a attitude or whatever. Like he had known me many years by that time,
Yeah.
and where that's evolved to is I have made it my life project to translate all of the tantras in the Nyingma Gyubum that are devoted to the Dzogchen, to
Yes.
the great perfection. And there's about about 17,000 pages in the Ati Yoga and Anu Yoga sections. There's 17 full volumes of
17.
17,000 pages that survive. And this is all material that's coming from the 8th century.
Oh,
So
great.
this is very
That's
ancient.
amazing.
And the Tibetans have copied them over the centuries.
Mm.
And so far in my 44 books, I have translated about 4 to 5,000 pages of Tibetan.
Wow.
So it's actually possible that I could get them all done. And I love doing it, and it's never ever boring.
Yeah,
Each
that's wonderful.
and every tantra has something new or amazing or astounding
Okay.
or something, and I completely love doing it. And I feel like this is the greatest contribution that I can make to mankind. So this is my big project, to translate the Nyingma Gyubum.
Wow. How generous from you also, dedicating your time to translate this. This is so generous. This is a legacy you are leaving. It's very, very important. I deeply
Oh,
rejoice for
I
that.
think that these books are going to be appreciated much more in the future than they are right now. As right
Yes.
now, they're just coming out one after the other quickly,
Yeah.
and people don't have time to really read them all and think of it carefully. But I'm sure that in 50 years or 100 years, they will be
Yeah.
much more widely read.
Yes.
I'm sure of that. And these are tantras that survived already for 1,300 years.
Wow. Yes.
And there's every reason to believe that they'll survive for a lot longer.
Yes. Absolutely. So I will ask you something. Many people have commented on the all creating king. I interviewed Dr. Rudolf Bauer before, who recommended this book. So can you tell us a little bit about the All-Creating King, your translation of it, and the impact it has made, please?
Well, this is my translation. It has a rhinoceros on the front of it.
Yeah, we showed Dr. Rudolf Bauer. He showed that book in our interview,
Yes.
precisely.
And
Yes.
a lot of people say that the all-creative king is the most important and fundamental of all the Dzogchen tantras. And in the collections of the manuscripts, they put the all-creating king at the very first tantra in the first volume. So if you're going to go to the 100,000 tantras of the ancient ones, the Nyingma Gyubum, the very first tantra you're going to meet is the all-creating king. And it's a large text. And it has I don't remember the number of chapters, but there are maybe 84. In this tantra, we get the voice of the great perfection itself saying, I am the creator of all things. And as we read it, we realize that what the Tantra is trying to explain to us is that we are the creator of all things.
Mm-hmm.
Each of us is the creator of our own reality.
Mm-hmm.
And our own reality is all we have.
Yes.
And when you see that your own reality is all you have, and you gain a sense of responsibility about your own reality, that I am responsible for the reality that I create, then this allows us a kind of empowerment, the empowerment of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And with a vision that's almost divine.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that talk about God and the people that talk about the all-created king I don't know if they're talking about the same thing or not, but many people have said that this is where we find a sense of divinity in Buddhism. I don't know. And on all these things, I reserve judgment.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to translate as accurately and beautifully as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any idea at all about whether it's doctrinally correct or incorrect, or which theory agrees with which other theory, or which tantra is like speaking out against which other tantra. I don't get into the philosophical and theoretical side of it at all. That's what they do in the academy. As a translator, my responsibility is to, whatever it says in Tibetan, it's going to say it in English.
Yes.
And then other people can worry about whether there is an idea of God in Buddhism. I don't know the answers to those questions.
God or creator, right?
Yeah.
There is also the creator aspect. So,
well, in a very real sense, the bodhicitta is a creative principle.
yes.
And the bodhicitta is the nature of our own mind.
Yeah.
And we do create our own realities. Now, if it helps you to think that there's something divine about that, then that kind of language is there.
Yes.
But I don't think it's necessary. The sense of enlightenment being the fundamental ground of all reality is that's what the Dzogchen has to offer. That the basic ground of reality is good.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Wonderful. So you try to include the Tibetan text with your Tantra translations so that readers who want to discuss the contents with lamas or learn Tibetan masters will have the text ready available. Why you decide to do that?
Well, I was at a conference
Mm.
and I was talking to some other scholars, and somebody said, "Well, it's always so hard to find the original texts, and what we need to do is just photocopy them and put them in our books." And I thought about what that person said, and I thought, there's some very good reasons to put the Tibetan manuscript there. Number one is authenticity. Like people when they read these tantras, they might say, well, maybe Chris Wilkinson made this stuff up. Maybe he's just a good poet. Like where's the proof that there's any scripture like this? And so in that case, there it is. That's the original scripture right there. And that also empowers people, even if you don't know Tibetan yourself. If you really have a question about something in the Tantra and you go to somebody who's a Tibetan master, then you can show them the text and say, well, what is this about? And you can have a conversation about that. And also, and this is very important, many people are concerned about transmission, loom, and this thing we call loom, which is transmission. And what a loom traditionally is in a Tibetan context is the Lama who has received it himself will read the text quickly to the students who are sitting there, and he has to read it from beginning to end without leaving anything out. And the students have to sit there and listen and take it all in. When you have done that, then you have received the loom transmission. Well, how are you going to get that loom transmission? In this case, if you get my book and you go to the Lama and you find a Lama that actually has the transmission of the Nyingma Gyubum, and you find this Lama and you say, I would like you to give me the loom for this. And the first thing the Lama will say is, do you have the book? And in this case, you can say, yes, it's right here. And then then it's between you and the Lama in question. But it does empower people to get the loom transmission if possible.
Yes.
So those are a few reasons why.
Loom transmissions means oral transmission.
Yes, oral transmission.
Yes. Yes. Also, you were saying?
I forgot.
I was saying that oral transmission, loom transmission is oral transmission. So you are saying with your books, the student goes to a qualified master, to a qualified Lama, and can immediately ask explanations about the text, and is an indirect way to receive the oral transmission of the text. Is this what you were trying to say?
Well, you would go to a Lama and say, I want the transmission for the all-creating king. And then the Lama would say, well, do you have the book? And you'd say, well, yes, here it is right here. And then you'd set up a time, and you should definitely make some good offerings for that, because you're asking somebody to spend a lot of their time and energy to do that. And then if you have that kind of good connection with a Lama who can do it, then this is a way that you actually have the book there.
Yes, I understand.
In the Buddhist tradition, Also, copying books is considered virtuous in itself. There's a lot of merit in copying
Yes.
them. And
Hmm.
even in some of the tantras, it says, if you copy this, you'll have many eons of great merit or whatever. And
Yes.
and so by including it in my translation, I'm proliferating the texts. And when
Yes.
you think about it, these books don't want to die.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't want to just sit there on shrines as
Absolutely.
centuries go by. The reason
Yes.
these books were written down is so that people would read them.
Mm.
And what we're doing now is getting them off of the shrines and
Yes.
into people's libraries, and
Yes.
getting people into reading the tantras. And I think that's good.
Yes. Yes. And you also are accumulating a lot of merit by doing that.
I need all the merit I
It's
can get.
wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Yes, that is true. Amazing. So, even with your accurate translations of these profound tantras, you think it's important to study under, you already told me, under the guidance of a learned and an accomplished master. And then, thirdly, the personal practice.
I started out with a good teacher,
Yes,
and
that's the big
and
point.
I've also noticed, like, many of these tantras say things like there is no Buddha, there is no
Yes.
Dharma. They say stuff like that, but you
Mm.
never see a tantra saying don't follow gurus. You never
Yes.
see a tantra that says don't listen to your guru.
Yes.
That they say many amazing and outrageous things, but
Yes.
actually a lot of the tantras talk about how you find a qualified guru, and they give you advice in the tantra about what to look for.
Yes,
And
that was the point of my question, to go there, because these are highly advanced tantras, and usually you need a proper guidance from a proper master in order to understand the meaning of what you are reading and in order to do an effective practice of that. Is am I correct?
yes, and I think if you go to a teacher and you've already read the book,
Hmm.
you can have a much more intelligent conversation with
That's
the
totally.
teacher. And also, some of the books tell you how to avoid bad teachers. And
Yes.
so, if you read the books and then you go and see a teacher, then you'll have a good understanding of what the words are and what the ideas are and what the issues are. And
Mhm.
like,
Yes, you also add the skillful means to analyze the teacher because you already read it in the text.
yes, yes. And if you read the Tantras and then you go,
Yes.
I mean, I'll tell you, I see some strange stuff appearing on my Facebook feed, and people are calling Dzogchen
Mm.
things that I never see in the Tantras.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff being said that is not really found in the scriptures. And there's
Yes.
really but you know, we're all on our own in that. We have to find qualified teachers. And
Yes.
when you can read the Tantras, then you know what they're really about. And then if you meet a teacher and they're teaching about that, then
Mm.
you say, well, okay, Chugyal Namkin Norbu was very famous
Yes.
uh, for being a teacher that really manifested the wisdom that he was talking about,
Yes.
and
Definitely.
that kind of authenticity is precious. And if you can find it, then you should take advantage. Really.
Yes, that's very important point because you mentioned something about many comments and things that appear in your Facebook wall mention this is Dzogchen, that is Dzogchen. I think Dzogchen is becoming fashionable. And then there is a big misunderstanding about the question because, as you said, many things that are said are not in the Tantras. So this is very, very important point you are bringing out. So I thank you very much for bringing this up. And
Also, we have to be careful because
yes,
the Dzogchen that they talk about in the Tantras might not be exactly the same thing that Jigme Lingpa and Longchenpa were. I mean, it's the same inspiration, you can say that.
mm-hmm,
But, like, for example, in some traditions, they call generation and perfection stage
mm-hmm,
meditations Dzogchen.
mm-hmm.
But in the Tantras, it says there is no generation or perfection. Um, and so the thing is,
Yes,
it's very
Shogyan,
difficult to practice when
yes,
you have
Shogyan
nothing to
Namkhai
do.
Norbu used to refer to that. I guess Shogyan Namkhai Norbu, he used to refer to that about these stages, that in the Tantras, they never mentioned that in the texts.
No, in the Tantras, it's not there. And he said it himself.
Yes.
I've translated all these Tantras, and you don't find creation stage yoga in the Tantras. But many teachers are teaching some kind of dzogchen that includes creation stage practice,
Yes,
and we
yes,
can't say that they're wrong
yes.
because they many times they're influenced by inspirations that have arisen in Tibet and treasure finders
Mm-hmm,
who find new authentic traditions
mm-hmm,
and teach them.
mm-hmm.
And I think it's better not to get involved in controversy.
Yes, yes, of course.
Generally, I
There are
just
many different
translate.
interpretation of the texts, and many are based on the what we call the termas, right?
Yes.
So that is very different issue. Is just a different perspective from the tantras and the tertans and some texts from particular Tibetan tertans. Is this correct?
As I understand it,
Mm.
but I am not a scholar. I mean, I
For me,
mean,
you are.
there are many,
For me,
many
you are.
people that are much, much wiser than I am about the developments of Buddhism in Tibet.
Mm,
I know probably more than most people about the original Dzogchen Tantras,
mm-hmm.
but it's been 1,300 years, and many people have read them and found their own inspirations.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's
That
why
is
they stay
true.
alive. That's why they stay
Yeah.
alive because every like when we read them today, they speak to us,
Mm-hmm.
and um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's they speak to people whatever their time and place.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of magical books in a way, I think.
Yes, they can transform your life deeply. They can transform a person's life very deeply in certain way. Um, I must confess that one of my favorite books is the Tantra on Vajrasattva Magnificent Sky, particular chapter 33. It says the true nature of the great perfection is the dual in great equanimity, without being distracted into great stupidity and without visualizing anything at all. At the moment we do this, our Buddhahood is evident from within ourselves. When we settle into equanimity in this pervasive state, without thinking about it, the result will come spontaneously, without any study. I find this pretty amazing. Can you kindly tell us about a bit more about this book and what motivates you to translate the great Tantra of Vajrasattva?
Actually, when I started out translating the Dzogchen Tantras,
Mm.
The first book that I translated was the one called Beyond Secret. And
Mm.
that is a collection of the commentaries by Vairochana himself
Mm-hmm.
on the six early translations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all full of technical terms and very terse. And it's one of the most profound practice manuals of any religious tradition. But I
Mm-hmm.
did that as a preparation. Um, and the first full tantra that I need to tell you, there's a collection called
Mm-hmm.
the 100,000 Tantras of Vairochana. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a unique manuscript. There's only one.
Mm-hmm.
And it came from the northern desert of Tibet and was kept in Ladakh for many
Mm-hmm.
years by Tokden Rinpoche.
Talk to
And
me.
yeah, and Tashi Gangpa published a photo offset of this unique manuscript
Mm.
many years ago now, 50 years ago or so. And
Mm.
the very first tantra in the 100,000 tantras of Vairochana is the great tantra of Vajrasattva. And it's in a 100-page version.
Mm.
Now, in the collected tantra, in the 100,000 tantras of the ancient ones, the
Mm.
Nyingma Gyalpo,
The
there are
Nigma, yeah.
two tantras. There's
Mm.
two tantras that are called the Great Tantra of Vajrasattva.
Mm.
And one of them is about 240 pages long, and the other one is 100 pages long. So the evidence is that the oldest Tantra is the one that's preserved in the Vairochana Gyalpo.
Mm-hmm.
And the 100-page version is the most ancient of all the Dzogchen Tantras. They're the earliest translations.
Mm-hmm.
So it was given a premier position by the compilers of the collections.
Yes.
So I wanted badly to translate it, and and I made that my first project of a tantra, and
Mm.
it came out beautifully, and many
Yes.
people liked it, and it was a real inspiration to me to see that I could do that and that people liked it,
Yes.
and that gave me much more hope in my adventure, and
Definitely.
so it's I'm very lucky because I can do something that I love, and also I learn from my books.
Yes.
I mean, the books that I work on are my teachers, and as I go through things personally, I find things in the tantras that speak to me,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and I feel lucky that way.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I had found in this tantra many things that speak to me. So that's why I was asking why you decided to do that, because it's brilliant, it's so deep, it's so wonderful, so inspiring, so amazing. This is my personal opinion, of course, but I already talked with other people that said the same, that they feel the same when they read this book. It's incredible. So congratulations, really. I honestly talking by my personal experience, but also from some friends that I've discussed about this book, and it's really a brilliant work. It's really brilliant, really amazing. Thank you so much
I
for
would
that.
like to translate the 240 page.
Oh,
Uh, what it looks like happened is they translated the first part of the tantra, and then many years later they went back and they found maybe they found a larger manuscript or whatever, And the first part of them, the first part is the same
Mm-hmm.
in the two, and the
Right.
other one is just longer by much longer. And
Mm.
it's one of the things that I hope I can do, because that
That's
I mean, Vajrasattva is really where it's at when you get into the Dzogchen. It's all about,
absolutely.
and so all of the Dzogchen tantras are pretty much conversations between Vajrasattva and Samantabhadra, who I
Exactly.
call the all good one.
The all good one. Anyway, on my personal name, I really thank you for this translation, and I advise everybody to buy this book and the book you showed before. I really advise everybody to read it. It's deeply inspiring and amazing. As you said, it talk with it said a lot of things to us. That is very true, very true. So my last question, can you kindly advise our audience some books precisely, or you translated, that you consider important and useful for the times we are living? Can you advise some books? Can you give opinion, or so our audience can be more oriented by you that translate the books? Can you please advise some books according to the times we are living, of your tantras, of your translations, please?
Well, one thing I've noticed is a lot of these tantras have a section at the end where they give prophecies about when this tantra will be received, or the future of the tantra. And they very often they say that this tantra is being written for people in the future. And some of them they actually took the books and put them into metal boxes and buried them.
Mm,
And that was actually, they were actual books early
mm,
on,
mm,
and that were buried or that were stuck into places like inside of a shrine in some
mm,
monastery or something. And actual books were found. So there's a when we read the Dzogchen Tantras, it's almost like they were written for us. Like we
mhm,
are the people of the future,
mm,
and this is like um, a message being sent to us from these people that lived 1,300 years ago, like a message in a bottle. And and here we open it up, and there's these words. It's like they have gathered the wisdom of humanity at that time and put it into these books, and it's like a time capsule. And
mm,
they speak to us, and they all are important.
mm,
One of the books I translated was called the Vajra Sky, the sutra that brings together the contemplations of all the Buddhas, and
mm.
it's in 3 volumes. That's
The
volume,
Vajra sky.
and this is volume 2, and
Thank
this
you for
is
showing.
volume 3,
3.
and
The
the
Vajra
volume 3
sky.
is, see, there it's a big set.
Mm,
And it was about 620 pages in Tibetan, and it took me 2 years to do those three.
wow.
And
3 volumes.
and in the first volume, there is the story of Rudra, and Rudra was a bad dude, mean, horrible. He was like eating everyone. You
Mm,
know, he was like just unbelievably monstrous character. And the Buddhas um, have to deal with that. And it's like Buddhism is a nonviolent tradition. And how did they manage to control this monster that had arisen and that was causing such havoc over the entire universe? And they did manage to control him. And the story of how they did that is very interesting. And this
all these details are in the other 2 volumes, right?
no, well, then the other 2 volumes go into other things. The first volume has the story of Rudra in it, and I think a lot of people would find that very, very meaningful in today's world where warfare and famine and disease and all these things are running rampant. And we have mass confusion and hatred and jealousy and greed are like running the amok in our world. And many of us are looking for solutions. And I think that the Great Perfection does have something to offer us. And many people have said that they gain inspiration by reading these books. My recent project, my most recent book that I brought out was Kissing the World.
Kissing the World, yes.
And Kissing the World is a tantra of the universal T of the Great Perfection. That's just Ti. Because what we have is we have the Ati, as in Ati Yoga, and then we have the Yang Ti, and then there's the black Yang Ti, and then there's the single golden grain of the Yang Ti, and then there's the Chi Ti, which I translate the universal Ti, and these are all, maybe we could call them like branches of the Dzogchen tradition. They're classified as Dzogchen. And what's special about the universal T is that most of the tantras were translated by Padmasambhava himself, working with Kawa Peltsa, who was one of the great translators of the old times. And as I told you earlier on, my teacher Desha Rinpoche told me to study the Great Perfection and particularly the transmission of Padmasambhava. And here in the 10th volume of the 100,000 Tantras of the Ancient Ones, I find collected tantras that were translated by Padmasambhava about the Great Perfection. And this is very exciting material.
Wow.
And this Kissing the World has only been out for about a month now. And
it's very recent.
Everybody's talking about it. I'm translating my next project that I'm coming out with.
Yes.
10 more tantras of the universal T that were also translated by Padmasambhava. And that's what I'm working on at this very moment.
Oh, 10.
Yeah, it's going to be a collection of 10 tantras. And
10 tantras.
This is what my
wow.
This is what my work looks like.
Incredible. The editor is in. The cat.
Them out by hand first. All my translations I write out by hand first, and then I think about them, and if I need to change anything, I can. And then when I type them in, I refine them, and that's the system that I have worked out.
Wow! So you have a big job. You are working in a big job, a big project now. This 10 tantras are this is quite huge, but must be amazing. You said directly translated by
I've
Padma
already
Sambhava.
finished more than half. And yeah, they're translated by Padma Sambhava. You know, I'm
Wow.
amazed by that. These are such important tantras. And I'm
Yes.
sure that as time goes by, many people are going to be reading them. But right now, I just, I don't spend a lot of time promoting my books, and
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't go out on the road, and I don't give lectures, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't really talk to the magazines and all that very much. Uh,
Yes.
but my books are selling themselves,
Yes,
and
everybody can find your books in Amazon. I can tell that because that's where I bought. So everybody can find through Amazon and other libraries, but everybody knows Amazon very well. I'm talking especially to the European audition people that are seeing us in Europe. They can easily find it through Amazon. Yes.
yes, they're all
So
on.
yeah, they are all there. They are all there. Amazing. So
Well,
really,
many people don't like Amazon, but the good thing about it is when I finish a book and I upload it, within 24 hours, anybody on the planet Earth can get it. And I don't have to live in Los Angeles or New York
yes, yes,
to be a translator. I can live in a small town where
yes,
the cost of living is more reasonable and the
yes,
life is more peaceful. And
yes,
and I when a book comes out, immediately there's orders coming in from all over the world.
yeah,
Um, I don't have millions of readers, but I have quite a few readers that do follow my books.
yeah. Quantity is not synonymous of quality. So, but I know you have many readers because I discussed with a few people about your books, and all these people have read some books that you wrote, and they were quite impressive. So I am very happy to have you as a guest in this program, in this Sattva interview. Uh, I guess we are finished from now. I hope we can have another interview. I'm inviting you already to have another interview, but to talk particular about your last work. So you can talk more detailed about your last work and explain us a bit more about that particular translation. Uh, you think about it, think about this invitation. And I want to thank you so much for your time, for your generosity in translating all this Tantra. 44 Tantras is amazing. Thank you for your kindness and generosity to all of us translating these texts. And thank you for your time here with me uh, to talk with our audience. And I would like also to ask you if there are some merits in this small interview. I would like to ask you to dedicate the merits, please, if you don't mind.
Gewa die gewo kunzanam yeje zozo dezenam yeje lechon wedam pakunito parsho.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chris. It was brilliant. May all beings be well and happy and meet the causes of happiness and eradicate all suffering. So, thank you for the dedication. And today is full moon. So, happy full moon to you. And thank you so much for your time for this interview and for the dedication of merits and for your generosity in writing so amazing books. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. See you next time. Consider the next invitation. Huh? Thank you. Thank you.